Avoid this mistake if you want real growth. Most of us think transformation is about grand gestures, announcing big changes, sharing our goals, or proving to the world that we're taking control of our lives. But here's the mistake: believing that growth needs an audience. What if I told you the most powerful transformations happen in silence, when no one is watching, no one is applauding, and no one even knows? In this video, we're going to explore the quiet, uncelebrated habits that hold us back. People-pleasing, holding on to grudges, ignoring red flags, and even the constant need for entertainment. And we'll dive into why letting go of these habits, one by one, quietly and confidently, could change your life in ways you never imagined. So if you're ready to break free from what's been holding you back, let's get started. Number 1. The trap of people-pleasing. Choosing boundaries over approval. Do you remember the last time you said yes to something you didn't really want to do? Maybe it was a favor for a friend, agreeing to stay late at work, or going along with plans that didn't excite you. At that moment, you probably smiled, nodded, and told yourself, "It's fine. It's no big deal." But deep down, it didn't feel fine, did it? You felt that pang of frustration, the quiet resentment of putting someone else's happiness above your own. People-pleasing is one of those habits that seems harmless, even noble. We're taught from a young age to be agreeable, helpful, and polite. It feels good to make others happy, right? But what they don't tell you is this: every unnecessary yes chips away at something important, your sense of self-worth. It's not kindness when you're sacrificing your own needs. It's self-neglect wrapped in politeness. I used to be the epitome of a people-pleaser, always the one to volunteer, to take on extra work, to nod along with decisions I didn't agree with. I told myself I was being helpful, but in reality, I was afraid of disappointing others, afraid of conflict, afraid of rejection. That fear kept me stuck in a cycle where other people's comfort mattered more than my own. If this sounds familiar, think about this. How often have you reshaped your plans, your energy, or even your identity just to fit someone else's expectations? Think back to a time when you bent over backward for someone who didn't even notice, let alone appreciate it. That ache you feel now, that's not just resentment. It's your inner self begging for boundaries. Here's the part that might surprise you. Saying no doesn't make you selfish or unkind. It makes you honest. The people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries, and those who don't, well, they were never in your corner to begin with. It's scary to think about, isn't it? The idea of putting your needs first, of saying no without apology, feels so foreign. But trust me, it's liberating. Number 2. The weight of grudges, reclaiming peace through forgiveness. Picture this. You're holding a heavy suitcase in each hand. Inside one is anger, and inside the other, pain. You've been carrying these suitcases for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to let go. Every step feels heavier, every movement slower, but still you hold on. Why? Because you believe that somehow carrying this weight protects you. Grudges work the same way. At first, they feel like armor, proof that you've been wronged, a way to guard yourself against future pain. But over time, that armor becomes a prison. Holding on to resentment doesn't hurt the person who wronged you. It hurts you. I know this all too well. There was a time when I clung to a grudge so tightly it became part of my identity. Someone I trusted betrayed me, and I replayed the moment in my mind like a broken record. I thought about all the ways I could have responded differently, how I could have made them pay. But instead of finding closure, I found bitterness. Think back to a moment in your life when someone let you down. Maybe it was a friend who broke your trust or a family member who hurt you in ways you can't forget. That wound, that anger, It felt justified, didn't it? Like holding on to it would somehow even the scales. But has it? Or has it just drained you day by day, year by year? Here's a truth that might make you pause. Forgiveness isn't about letting the other person off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of the grudge. It's not easy. It takes time and courage. But imagine what life could feel like without those heavy suitcases in your hands, without the pain weighing on your heart. Number 3. Ignoring red flags. The cost of denying your intuition. Have you ever been in a situation where something just didn't feel right? Maybe it was a new friendship, a relationship, or even a job. That uneasy feeling in the pit of your stomach, the voice in your head saying, something's off. But instead of listening, you brushed it aside. You told yourself you were overthinking or being too sensitive. We've all been there. Ignoring red flags is easier in the moment. After all, confronting them means facing uncomfortable truths we're often not ready to handle. But here's the thing about red flags. They don't go away, they grow. I once ignored every warning sign in a relationship that was clearly toxic. At first, it was little things, dismissive comments, a lack of accountability. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that nobody's perfect. But as time went on, those little things became bigger things. Arguments turned into patterns, disrespect turned into a lack of trust. And before I knew it, I felt trapped in a situation I should have left long ago. Think back to a time when you ignored your gut instinct. Maybe it was a friendship where the other person always took but never gave, or a job where the culture felt off from day one. Did you stay because you hoped it would get better? Because you feared the consequences of walking away? Here's the truth that's hard to swallow. Ignoring red flags isn't about being forgiving or optimistic. It's about self-betrayal. Every time you dismiss those warning signs, you're telling yourself that your feelings, your needs, and your intuition don't matter. What if you trusted yourself instead? What if you believed that your instincts were there to protect you, not to scare you? It's a scary thought, right? To walk away from something that feels comfortable, even if it's hurting you. But imagine the freedom, the relief, of choosing yourself over the fear of the unknown. Number 4. The silence of complicity. Speaking up for what matters. Do you remember the last time you stayed silent when you should have spoken up? Maybe it was during a heated family argument, a tense workplace meeting, or when a friend made a comment that didn't sit right with you. You probably felt that tightness in your chest, the urge to say something, but instead you held back. And afterward, you couldn't shake the feeling that you let yourself down. It's tempting to believe that staying silent is the path of least resistance. After all, speaking up risks conflict, misunderstanding, or even rejection. But here's the thing. Silence often sends a louder message than words ever could. When we choose not to speak, we unintentionally give our approval to the very things we disagree with. I've been there. I once sat through a meeting where a colleague's ideas were being unfairly dismissed. I knew I should have said something, but I told myself, it's not my place. Later, when that same colleague confronted me, their words cut deep. Why didn't you back me up? I thought you were on my side. They were right. I had let my fear of rocking the boat outweigh my sense of justice. Think back to a time when you witnessed something wrong but didn't intervene. Maybe it was a friend being treated unfairly, a stranger in need, or a conversation filled with prejudice. What stopped you? Was it fear of standing out? Worrying about what others might think? Now imagine how different things might have been if you'd spoken up. Maybe your words wouldn't have changed the situation immediately, but they would have shown courage, integrity, and the willingness to stand for what's right. And sometimes that's enough. Number 5. Escaping escapism, breaking free from constant entertainment. Picture this. It's been a long day, and all you want to do is relax. You grab your phone, scroll through social media, binge watch your favorite show, or dive into a video game. Hours pass, and before you know it, the day is gone. You feel numb, disconnected from the world, and maybe even from yourself. We've all been there. In a world that never stops moving, constant entertainment feels like a refuge. It's how we escape stress, boredom, or even the deeper problems we don't want to face. But here's the thing about escapism. It doesn't solve anything. It's like putting a bandage on a wound that needs stitches. It covers the problem, but doesn't heal it. I remember a period in my life when I couldn't go a single day without filling every quiet moment with noise. Podcasts during walks, TV while eating, social media before bed. It felt harmless, even productive. But deep down, I knew I was avoiding something. I was afraid of sitting with my thoughts, of confronting the emptiness I felt when the distractions were gone. Think about your own habits. How often do you reach for your phone when you feel bored? How many hours do you spend scrolling, swiping, or watching, only to feel emptier afterward? It's not that entertainment is bad. It's that we've started using it as a crutch, a way to avoid the uncomfortable but necessary task of self-reflection. What would happen if you put the distractions down, even for a day? What might you discover about yourself in the silence? It's a scary thought, isn't it? To be alone with your mind. But maybe, just maybe, that's where the answers you've been searching for are hiding. Number 6. The power of privacy. Why oversharing undermines authenticity. Do you remember the last time you shared something personal online? Maybe it was a heartfelt post, a vulnerable moment, or an update about your struggles. At first it felt good, liberating even. The likes and comments poured in, and for a moment you felt seen. But then a strange feeling crept in. Was it regret? Doubt? The nagging question of whether you'd shared too much. Oversharing is one of the most tempting traps of our digital age. We tell ourselves it's about authenticity, about being real and open. But often it's something deeper. A craving for validation, for reassurance, for connection. And while sharing can sometimes bring those things, it can also leave us feeling exposed, judged, or even exploited. I learned this the hard way. There was a time when I shared almost everything online, my struggles, my joys, my fears. At first, it felt empowering, but over time, I noticed something troubling. People who barely knew me felt entitled to comment on my life, to offer unsolicited advice, or worse, to use my vulnerabilities against me. What started as an attempt to connect left me feeling more disconnected than ever. Think back to your own experiences. How often have you shared something personal only to regret it later? Maybe it was a heated argument you vented about, a struggle you weren't ready to discuss, or a moment of joy that felt cheapened by sharing it with the wrong audience. Here's a truth that's hard to face. Privacy is a form of power. Not every thought, feeling, or experience needs to be shared. Some things are sacred, meant to be kept for ourselves, or shared only with those who've earned our trust. Imagine how it might feel to hold your life's most precious moments close, instead of offering them up for public consumption. Scary, maybe, but also freeing. Number 7. Quiet growth. Letting go of toxic habits. Without an audience, think about the last time you decided to change something in your life. Maybe you wanted to eat healthier, spend less time on your phone, or work on your confidence. Did you feel the urge to announce it to the world? Maybe you posted about it online or told your friends and family. And why not? Sharing feels like accountability, a way to make your intentions real. But let me ask you this. How often does that public declaration actually lead to lasting change? Sure, it feels good in the moment. The encouragement, the likes, the "you've got this" comments, they're uplifting. But when the excitement fades and the grind of real change begins, how often do you quietly slip back into old habits, ashamed to admit you couldn't follow through? I used to think that change needed an audience. Every time I set a new goal, I'd tell everyone around me, hoping their support would carry me through. But over time, I realized something uncomfortable. The more I talked about what I was going to do, the less energy I had left to actually do it. I was chasing the high of approval instead of committing to the slow, messy process of growth. Have you ever felt that? That strange disconnect between the person you want to become and the person you're showing the world. Maybe you told everyone you were quitting a bad habit only to feel trapped by the pressure to appear perfect. Or maybe you've stayed in toxic cycles, silently convincing yourself that as long as no one knows, it doesn't count. Here's a truth that no one tells you. Real transformation doesn't need an audience. It happens in the quiet moments when no one is watching. It's when you choose to put the phone down instead of scrolling through distractions. It's when you decide to walk away from toxic relationships, not with a dramatic farewell, but with quiet resolve. It's when you wake up every day, not needing applause, just determined to be better than you were yesterday. Think about a habit or pattern you've been wanting to change. What if you didn't tell anyone about it? What if you let your actions speak louder than your words? Imagine the power of quietly building the life you want, brick by brick, without the need for external validation. It's a radical idea, isn't it? In a world obsessed with oversharing and public transformation, choosing silence feels almost rebellious. But that's where the magic happens, in the quiet, uncelebrated moments when you're simply showing up for yourself. So here's the question: what's stopping you? What toxic habit, relationship, or belief have you been holding on to, waiting for the right moment to let go? Maybe the moment isn't waiting for a public declaration. Maybe it's waiting for you, right now, in the stillness, to take the first quiet step toward the person you're meant to be. This section is designed to leave the audience deeply introspective, struck by the realization that true growth is often a personal and private journey. It shifts from relatable struggles to a poignant sense of nostalgia and curiosity, encouraging them to take action without needing external validation. Real growth doesn't need applause, an audience, or validation. It's about the quiet moments when you decide to choose yourself, your boundaries, your peace, your intuition, over the habits and expectations that have held you back. By eliminating these subtle chains, not with a bang, but with steady, intentional steps, you're creating a life that's simpler, stronger, and more meaningful. Drop a in the comments if you've made it this far. It shows you're part of the rare 0.01% who truly commit to seeing things through. If you're serious about building the life you deserve, hit that subscribe button and join our community. Let's grow together, one quiet victory at a time.